Welcome to the Center for U.S. War Veterans Oral Histories at the National Guard Militia Museum of New Jersey in Seagirt, a partner of the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Today is August 20th, 2018. I am Carol Fowler, Director of the Center. Assisting me is William Elwell of Monmouth University. Our honored veteran is retired Sergeant First Class Walter J. Hill, who served in the Vietnam War, the Cold War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Enduring Freedom. His service was first with the United States Marine Corps from November of 1971 until April of 75 with the 3rd Amtrak Battalion and with the 2nd Battalion, 9th Marine Regiment in Vietnam. In April of 1977, he joined the New Jersey Army National Guard and was with 2nd Battalion, 102nd Armor until July of 1981, when he became AGR in 50th Armored Division DISCOM, DMMC, Division Materiel Management Center, the division's logistics coordinating and control element, until September of 1996. In October of 2008, he was retiree recalled with the 102nd Cavalry, New Jersey Army National Guard, U.S. Army, OIF, until June of 2009. And again, he was retiree recalled in August of 2010 with headquarters 10th Mountain Division for OEF Afghanistan campaign until December of 2011. Thank you for wanting to be here today. Walter, your eyewitness accounts are considered primary source material and valuable contribution to our Veteran Oral History Project. And good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Walter, take us back to life prior to service. Had anyone in your family served before you?
No, I'm the only one.
Okay, so what was your motivation to become a Marine?
My draft number was 28.
You were drafted.
No, I joined. A friend of mine said, join the Marines or not in Vietnam, so I went over and joined the Marine Corps. And then I ended up in Vietnam in December 72. Yeah.
Why the Marine Corps?
I don't know. It just walked up. They were the first office in the building. You know, because it was down in Elizabeth. You walked upstairs, and I remember everybody had an office off this long hallway, and the Marines were the first one. So,
Okay.
you know, lucky to draw.
Can you describe that era so we can more understand what it was like for you walking into that building?
Well, the whole time frame of then, you know, the whole protest against the war had bled down to high school, to the high school level. There were walkouts and there were big old protests going on, and it was a very strange upheaval time for people. Most of us didn't know what the hell was going on, you know, and what led up to it was I got out of high school and was feeling my oats and ready to go to work, and tried college and tried trade school, and it failed, and I just was looking for something, and Marines looked pretty cool, so I stepped into it.
And what kind of adjustment was it for you, stepping into that type of life?
my first day in boot camp down at Parris Island, they put you in the barracks, and, you know, you get it all squared away, and then they kick you out, and they came in and they tore the place up. And I was just standing there after we came back in, looking at this holy mess and shaking my head. The DI came up and he's bouncing his campaign hat off the bridge of my nose while he's screaming. I stepped back and I said, you know, you gotta be the craziest motherfucker I ever met. He laughed. And I paid for 13 weeks for one-day motivation for 13 weeks.
How did you pay?
One-day motivation is that they take you out for an entire day, and you march, run, do the obstacle course, bayonet course. By the time you get back, you're a holy mess, and you're just dragging ass. So
Just you? No one else in your...
That was for those guys that were dragging ass, but because I still had some civilian in me that first night, and I called him a crazy motherfucker. He targeted me, you know.
The rest of the time?
Yep. So.
3 months.
Yep. Oh well. Yeah.
What time of year was that?
that would have been November, so yeah, it was like early November.
What were living conditions like then?
We lived in the old World War II barracks, you know, 2 men to a
See the
bunk.
age in them?
Oh, yeah, it was the old wood plank floor, you know.
So it was cold?
Oh, yeah, they were cold in the winter, and then it got warm down there just before we graduated, so it was like November, December, January, early February. Yeah, no, it was cold all the time, yeah.
So you were out in the snow a lot?
There was no snow. I don't remember snow down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's South Carolina. That's like 5 minutes from friggin' Georgia, you know.
And what memories come back to you most from Parris Island?
Oh, a lot of fun. It was cool. Yeah,
Oh.
I enjoyed it, you know. One time I was standing in formation and they have sand fleas down there. And this old sand flea was gnawing away in my ear. And I did the look to the right, look to the left, and I didn't see the drill instructor. So I reached up to kill it, and he was standing right behind me. He must have seen it as he was walking down. So I had to bury it. They gave me a serving spoon. I had to dig a 3x3x3 grave
For the flea?
and then bury it.
Oh my God.
So the next drill instructor comes out and gave me harassing the shit about here and disturbing the ground, what I did. And then I told him, I said, Private was instructed to perform a military funeral for a sand flea. And he said, who gave you permission to bury that piece of shit on my ground? Dig it up.
Oh, okay.
So I had to dig it up, and then I get down there, I'm like, how am I supposed to find it? So I just waited. Another sand flea came by, I killed it, I stood there. And he picks it up and he goes, what sex was that flea you killed? And I said, a male. And he goes, this is a female, find me the right one. So I was kind of marked throughout boot camp.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
Well, they came out with high rifle, got promoted to PFC, you know, so.
What weapons were you trained on?
In boot camp it was M14. That was the old M14 we got there.
Did your family come to your graduation?
No. Then I was on my own, so.
Where'd you go after that? Camp Lejeune?
Lejeune, and then out to Pendleton.
How'd you transport?
It was all, you flew. When you left boot camp, you came home for 10 days.
Was it hard readjusting for those 10 days?
Oh, yeah, I was not the same that when I left. I couldn't sit down, because you don't sit down in boot camp. You stand, well, back in those days, you stood. So you stood in front of your bunk and you had a red book, the red book they called it, and in there was all of these subjects. It was Marine Corps history, you know, the rifle, the pistol, everything. You know, first aid was in there, uniforms were in there, and you read that thing 3-4 hours a day, standing at it, you know, standing in front of your bunk. So, and then, and I came home. I was a wrestler in high school, so I wrestled 157, and I probably, at that time, at wrestling, I probably had like 10% body fat. And when I came home, I was 165 with 10% body fat. You know, so it was.
You built muscle.
Yeah, oh yeah, big time, yeah. You know, they made you do push-ups before chow, and then you did push-ups after you came out of the mess hall. You did push-ups to get back in the barracks. You did push-ups when you came out. So I'll guarantee you, we probably pushed Parris Island at least an inch lower. So, yeah.
And then what about Pendleton?
Pendleton was great. You were halfway between LA and San Diego. Being stationed there, that was pretty cool. And back in those days, you know, there was, that was, let me see, when I first got there, we didn't do there was no money. So there was no field training. We had very little fuel, so the vehicles didn't move a lot, you know. By that time, wait a minute, I'm losing my track, losing train of thought. No, yeah, there wasn't much going on. And then,
Why did you have little fuel?
there was no money.
What year was this?
That would have been
72?
72. 71. No, 72. 72, yeah. Was it? Oh, I'm losing track now. 72. Yeah, there was no money. There was no money for training.
President Ford.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
That's interesting.
then in November, they had a request for Marines to go to the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force. And I volunteered, I got out there, and the point of entry, they had already been at sea. So the point of entry for us was, we flew into, not Da Nang, but the other air base. We flew in Kandahar Bay. And then we went out to ship.
Where is it?
Yeah, Cameron Bay. We flew into there, and then we went out to ship. And then, like 2 weeks later, we came back, and we ended up in the Central Highlands in a place called Fubai. I don't see it on this map. There's Fudan. It was like in this area here. Then we used to work out of a fire base.
I think I see it under the word central. Does that say Fubai?
Fumai. Well, Fubai, I don't, maybe it might be the same place. We call it Fubai.
Yeah, I've heard of Fubai.
And then there was
Okay.
there was a fire base, Eagle, that we worked out of too, and we were there. So that was December. And then, so by January, I actually put my feet on the ground. So, which was an interesting time.
What was your first acclimation to
When
Vietnam?
I flew into,
Was it a hot zone?
no, when I came back, we choppered in off a ship, and about 5 minutes after we got off the chopper, there was a rocket attack. So,
Were you armed?
oh yeah, we were armed to the teeth because we were going in, and we're gonna work with supposedly work with the ARVNs on transition.
How did that go? What was your opinion of the ARVNs?
Some of them were pretty good, you know. Later on, there was an ARVN artillery battalion that saved our asses a couple of times. You know, they had the old American 105s, what was it, the M109, I think. So they saved our asses a few times.
Can we talk about some of those times?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know. We can try, you know.
Oh, okay.
So you were in theater for 4 months.
Yeah.
The first thing you did was,
We established in the old fire base that the ARVNs had really took control of was Fubai. And then we moved in, we took half of it. And we established that, put up improved the perimeter security and that kind of stuff. And then probably a week later, we started doing patrols. You know,
how long would these patrols be?
a couple hours to a couple of days, you know.
And you participated as a rifleman?
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing, yeah. When I volunteered, I thought I was gonna be an Amtrak crewman, but 3rd Marine Amphibious Force didn't take their Amtraks with them. So, and then the Marine Staff Sergeant, I guess he was, at the reception station said, hey, listen, like Chesty said, we're all 0311s, which is the MOS code for infantry. So I ended up with Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines.
How long were you at this fire base for in Fubai?
That was the primary spot. We went to Eagle a couple of times just to, I don't know why. We didn't do anything when we went to Eagle. We didn't even, I don't remember if we did any patrols or not.
So Eagle was definitely a lot less hot than Fubai was.
Oh yeah, Fubai, they used to snipe at us and, you know, send a rocket or two, you know, but it always landed on the ARVN side, you know.
What were living conditions like?
Oh, it sucked. It's like you're in a bunker, sandbags. There was three, four, five, six guys to a bunker. There was rats. We used to hold it, we had a Ruger 22 suspended by like some big rubber bands. So when you were in your hammock, you could grab it and shoot the little bastards. They came out of the wall. You know, so there was rats, the food sucked, the beer was warm. Actually, it was very hot. Used to keep it in a dumpster with a lock on it, the first sergeant did. You know,
So to keep people from getting at it?
yeah, and it was Rheingold, and then we used to get Rheingold, and then the beer from Washington. What was that one? Falstaff. I think it was Falstaff. And that was terrible beer.
This was all provided as a ration, right?
Yeah. Used to get a carton of cigarettes a week, and 2 beers a day if you wanted it.
Did you smoke?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Winston. That was my flavor of choice. You know. So we had this new kid show up one time. It was funny. We were only there like a month, and we were like the veterans compared to this kid. And I kept thinking, this is how I acted a month ago. You know. I said, "Come on, let's go get our cigarettes." And he goes, "But Lance Corporal, I don't smoke." I said, "I didn't ask you that." I said, "Let's go." When the first sergeant asks you, he's going to give you Chesterfield. But when he asks you what you want, you tell him Winston. Okay, so you come with me. I'll show you. And then he goes, "But I don't smoke." I said, "I didn't ask you if you smoked or not. You're just going to stand there, the first sergeant, and you're going to tell the man, I want Winston. And he's going to give you Chesterfield." Took 3 times for that dumb son of a bitch to understand we're going to go get some cigarettes. Extra rations. And we did the same thing with beer. So, Lance Corporal, I don't drink. I said, "I didn't ask you that." We're going to go ask, you know, and the first sergeant's going to ask you what kind you want. You're going to say Budweiser, and he's going to give you Rheingold or the other crap, you know. So then we would end up, and everybody that didn't drink or smoke, they went and got online anyway, so that there was extra rations in hand. So we
So
would
you
take,
could trade?
yeah, we would trade it, go over to the Arvins and trade, you know, and trade for some, like, their food or whatever.
Was
Did
it
the Arvins
okay?
have anything good?
Nah, they didn't have shit.
Did it make you sick?
No, they were pretty good. They had some pretty good cooks over in that side. It beat sea rats. You know, we used to get hot rats once a week, maybe. You know, but most of the time it was seas. You know? And we got pretty inventive with that too.
Right.
Like a couple times we traded for a pot from the Arvins, and we started taking. You would. What was the one that we used to save all the time? Well, there was beans and franks and sea rats. There was like a mac and cheese or mac and beef, I think it was. So we would kind of hoard those, and then the one guy in the hooch, you know, had a knack, and he would create something. You know, you had hot sauce in your rat, you had salt and pepper. We would go get some hot stuff from the Arvins. You know, just maybe some fresh veggies too. You know, whatever the local stuff was. You know, there was one that looked like a red pepper, but it was long. You know, and then cabbage. They always had cabbage too. That was the big thing. So, yeah, it was pretty good.
Did anybody higher up get a little mad about the trading, or?
No, because they were doing it themselves. You know, so.
What was a typical day like for you there?
A lot of times it was very boring, you know, because it was make work days when they would pick details to go burn the shit pots, you know, rebuild a section of the perimeter wall or whatever, you know. So, you know, but for the most part, it was really mostly boring, to tell you the truth, you know. So.
Were you ever sick or injured?
No, all the time I was there. I got sunburned, that's about it, but no. You know, all the time I was there.
And was there a camaraderie among the Marines?
Oh, yeah. You know, we were all kind of thrown together. One guy, what's his name? He was from Philly. J.B. Smith. He's a funny story, but Yeah, it was him. I haven't talked to anybody since I've never seen anybody or talked to anybody since then.
That's remarkable, considering the internet, and
Yeah, we just,
so you never joined any associations?
oh yeah,
For the
I'm part
Marines?
of like VFW, American Legion and all
But
that.
not for the Marines or that
I
unit?
belong to the Marine Corps Association, but
No specific,
yeah, I was thinking about going to one of the reunions, but I was like, you know what?
so they have you in their system?
Yeah, I'm there, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I get stuff from them, you know,
That's very interesting.
yeah, but I don't associate it with anybody from that time.
Did they try to reach out to you?
Maybe at one time, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's over with.
The fact that you're on the mailing list, like.
Yeah, so I get more requests for donations than anything else. You know, so.
And who else did you serve with besides ARVNs and Marines? Anyone else?
Oh, well, when I was in country?
Yeah.
No, it was just us. The Arvins, we really didn't do any joint ops with them. We would use their scouts mostly. You know, you gotta remember, I was like a lance corporal at that time. That would be an E3,
What was the average age of your
19.
buddies?
Most of us were 19 years old.
Kids, yeah. And what about packages from home and letters?
Well, I kind of kept my deployment quiet for those months because my mom was going through open heart surgery, and back in those days, it's not like today where, you know, back in those days, she was one of the first ones to get bypass surgery, you know. So I kind of kept everything quiet, but yeah, I used to get letters. They used to come in. It was like 2 weeks old, you know.
So she knew where you were?
Well, she knew I was deployed. I was no longer in the country, but she didn't know I was. I didn't tell my mom and dad until I got home, or maybe even after I got out of the Marines, you know. So,
How many were at home in your family?
I come from a family of 8, you know, and there was, my 3 younger brothers were still home, and I think my older brother was either getting ready to get married and bust out, or, you know, but yeah, my 2 sisters were gone at that point. No, wait a minute. My other sister was still there, yeah, so.
So why was it only 4 months you were there?
Well, in 73 is when they started reaching those peace talks got serious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in 73, then just prior to something happening at Parris, we had a major engagement with NVA regiment, or a battalion from the NVA.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we kicked the snot out of them. We kicked the snot out of them.
Do we have it on the map?
Well, if this is Phu-Bai, it was close to the Cambodian border. So you see, this was a high traffic area coming in. I don't know how accurate this is, but the trail used to come down through Laos and Cambodia, so we used to go out there and mess with them every so often.
Their supply trail?
Yeah, that's the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then they would come into the Central Highlands, and actually this is incorrect because it used to come down all into here. But there was not just one trail, there was several that they used to use, and we used to come down, we used to go over there and mess with them and lay ambushes and booby traps, and, you know. And then one time we went out, and they were there in force. And,
Was it night, day?
that was just 3 days. So that's when,
What do you mostly remember about that?
not being able to stand up and take a pee.
For 3 days?
Well, I'm going to say it started on the first day in the afternoon. Second day, the second day it was hot and heavy, and then the third day there was very little going on. I guess whatever whatever happened. That's when the Arvin Artillery Battalion really saved our asses. So, yeah, and then 2 days later, we got back to Fubai after that. 2 days later, we got pulled out. We went to the Rock, Okinawa.
Was there air support for you? in those
There
flights?
might have been, I don't really remember. Again, I was a Lance Corporal, you know, and there was, I don't remember if it was there. I remember a lot of artillery.
Napalm?
Yeah, no. So,
So when you say the ARVN saved you, you mean they knew the terrain better?
well, there was no American artillery left. It's 1970, 73. There was very little American assets left, you know. We were like, we were some of the last, you know, there wasn't much left.
A lot of our units had been evacuated already.
Yeah. One time I looked at the order of battle, and a lot of them were stripping out 72, 73, and then the whole idea was to transition it over to the Arvins, you know, so.
Do you think that was a good idea?
Well, I don't know.
It had to happen.
Thinking back at those times, how the country was torn apart, and, you know, if we weren't prepared to move north and conquer the North Vietnam and suppress everything, and, you know, I don't know.
Right.
Hindsight, looking at Vietnam these days, though, hey, I don't know. They're a communist nation in title only, you know. A couple of us are talking about going back, take a trip.
Interesting.
Yeah, take a trip. There's a guy I know in Morristown, he's been back almost 20, 30 times, you know.
No, I never heard that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them. A couple guys are involved that I know are in a Habitat for Humanity. They go back and they build 2 or 3 houses. Well, they're probably getting a little too old, but, you know, simple homes, 1 room with a bath and running water. And they would go back and do those in different areas. One guy's married to a Vietnamese woman, you know, so that's probably part of the motivator, you know. But yeah, I've contributed to them, and they go back and they build these little homes, and yeah, you know, and they all tell me that they tour the countryside, and when they find out that you're American, you're like gold, you know, especially if you run into some old Vietnam vets, you know, they're, you know, Arvin vets, and even North vets,
Oh,
you know, and right now, the area that used to be known as China Beach is a resort area and overrun by Russians, is what they told me. And the Vietnamese can't stand them.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, can't stand them.
I didn't know.
Yeah, they, you know, I don't like Russians anyway. The few times I dealt with them, they're a pain in the asses. But, yeah.
Yeah,
so
we're told it's a beautiful country, and it was
It's gorgeous.
a shame that a war
Yeah.
was there.
One guy came back and showed me some pictures of the countryside, and here are all these carvings and statues. One has got to be a 20-foot long dragon. You know, the typical dragon you may see where serpentine's got this huge head. And I'm like, where were these? And he said, all of the Buddhist monks hid them during the war. So they were hidden from the French occupation in the 50s to when we left in the 70s. And then they brought them back out. And then when the Vietnamese first took over the South, there was all of these war memorials all over the place, like, you know, shot up American tanks and PCs and stuff. He said they're all gone. All gone. And they have less memory than we do about the war, because they're dying off at a faster rate than we are.
Because Agent Orange affects them too.
Well, I don't know if so much of it's Agent Orange, but they're 2 generations, maybe 3 generations now since the war. So it's all gone. It's out of sight, out of mind for them. So, you know, so I may take a ride. I may go back. You know,
You don't have any Agent Orange problems?
I'm on the registry, but you know, we walked on the moon once. You know, it's an area that was sprayed, and it's just everything's dust. So we called it the moon.
Oh,
Yeah, so we walked on the moon once.
no, I never heard that.
Yeah, so
All right, what was your homecoming like?
quiet.
One of
Quiet.
8 kids. You're-
Well, when I got home, probably the worst part was when we got back to California. We flew into it was either Edwards or Norton Air Base, and we got told to change into our civilian clothes before we leave post.
And that was a shock.
That was an insult.
An
So it
insult.
wasn't a shock. It was a down and out insult.
You risked your life.
Yep. And then the local cops gave me a ride to the airport. Because there was a protest going on outside post, or outside the air base. And a couple of cops walked up and asked me where I was going. I said, going to the airport. Just got back from Vietnam. Man, get in, let's go, we'll take it. So they gave me a ride to the airport.
Were they veterans too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't remember, maybe one of them was a Vietnam vet, so.
It's a nice story.
Yeah, and then when I got back, after coming home, my mother, she noticed a difference in me, and I never talked about it. I didn't talk to my parents about my experiences until just before my father passed away in 1988. And I don't talk about it to anybody.
Right. We appreciate your talking today.
Yeah, but you're getting smart.
Cleaned up version.
Yeah.
By that time, though, you had at least told them you had been in Vietnam?
Yeah. After I got discharged from the Marines, because then I got back to California, late '73, and got back to the end of the Amtraks and went out to the field. My first time out in the field, and I had my hand crushed in the tank hatch for the Amtrak. So
Which hand was that?
the right one, the fingers are distorted.
So that's a service-related injury?
Yeah. I'm 80% rated with the VA for a couple of other things. But, I enjoyed it. And then after that, because I had to go through a couple of surgeries, they made me a clerk because I had typing in high school.
So where did you serve? Were you wait, you mentioned the Rock, Okinawa?
Okinawa, yeah, the Rock, yeah.
So
We were
Camp
security,
Schwab?
we ended up,
Camp
most of
Fuji?
us ended up as a security detail for the Iwakuni ammunition depot.
Can you spell that?
I wouldn't even begin to try.
Iwo is an
Iwakuni,
island.
yeah. Iwakuni ammo dump. And I spent, so I got back there, it was April, May, so June, July, August, September, 4 months on security detail.
73?
Yeah, yeah, kids, yeah, 72, 70, yeah, 73. Yeah,
Okinawa?
yep. And then,
What did Okinawa look like there then?
it was cool, but you worked 5.5 days. So we ended up working 6 days. You only got 1 day off at that time in the Rock, because they didn't want you to go out in the village too much.
Why?
I don't know. Just that's the rule was, just to keep us clean, I guess.
You were still a Lance Corporal at this time?
Yeah, I didn't get promoted to corporal until '74, until I got back to California.
So you were at Camp Schwab?
No, we were the barracks for the wherever our headquarters was in the Rock someplace. My time was strictly up in the ammo dump, Iwakuni Air Base ammo dump.
And you weren't at Camp Fuji either?
Nope. Visited there for health and that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so our detail was up there. We were, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe we were like, I don't know. I don't even know.
And you were a clerk there?
No, we were
Oh.
all guards, all security guards.
Oh.
I didn't become a clerk and jerk until '74. after I injured my hand. Because I couldn't serve on the tracks anymore, because this was in a big cast. So they put me in the office,
It
in
must
the
be
orderly
rough
room,
typing with a cast though.
on left hand.
One hand.
And then IBM Selector 1s. I really didn't do a lot of typing. I used to do all the filing, and they had this old machine where to make rosters, you made this data plate. You punched out this data plate and put it into this machine so that if you needed a roster, you punched out a roster. So yeah.
So at Iwakuni, what would the day be like?
Again, it was mostly boring, because after the first week of doing a patrol around a 20 or 25 acre ammo depot, the sights become pretty much the same as if you were to walk this room for 5 minutes.
I mean, in Okinawa, it's pretty safe.
Oh yeah, but there was still, there was nuclear weapons there. That was the nuclear depot. So there was a depot inside the depot. So we were on the outer perimeter, so there was stuff, there was stuff there, Matter of fact, after I left, maybe it was 75 or so, there was a terrorist brigade, a terrorist organization called the Red Brigade. They actually tried to go midnight shopping there one time. I think it's like 75 or something. So whoever the detail was waxed them. So
Where were they from?
that was that Japanese Red Brigade. If you go back, I guess they tried to go midnight shopping. So
Interesting.
yeah. And then the daily routine was, if you weren't on watch, you were cleaning the barracks, policing the area, taking care of personal business, whatever.
So on your day off, could you go out?
Yeah, oh yeah, he went out to the little Ville locally, or just slept late, because, just relax, take it easy. We had a little club, there was a little club there that they allowed us to have, so nothing fancy,
Did you have USO visit you?
There was a USO close by. Was it out in the town? Or was it on post? Or was it right outside the gate? Camp Swanson, I think was it? No. I forget. Yeah, we used to get that, And then a mobile PX truck used to come up to us every so often. So we got our cigarettes and health and comfort items and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. Nobody bothered us. We were out of sight, out of mind. It was pretty cool. The gunnery sergeant that ran the whole operation, what was his name? I'm trying to think of his name. I can picture him. He used to blouse his trousers low on his ankles, Clark, Gunnery Sergeant Clark. That was his name. He was a piece of work.
And where'd you go after Okinawa?
Back to Pendleton and back to 3rd Amtrak. I ended up with B Company? No. Yeah, B Company, 3rd Amtrak. They became right after I got injured, they became the training company for Amtrak's on the West Coast. So there was only 3 active companies, A, C, and D. And then...
And how did you heal? How was medical care for you?
Cool. Yeah, it was good.
Did you have surgery overseas?
No. There's all the accident and the surgery all took place in Pendleton at the Naval Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
How heavy was the hatch?
it was good size. It was probably 40, 50 pounds, And there was a spring that used to keep the lock in place. They were flat pieces of metal, and they used to snap all the time. And So we had it tied back with a strap, and I had my hand up here, and the strap let loose, and the driver hit the brake and came over and slammed my hand.
You're lucky it didn't amputate your hand.
Well, the one fingertip was in my pocket when I got there. So they put it back on, and then
Oh my gosh.
Then they
yeah.
fused it. That's what it was. And they fused the knuckles, you know, so there was pins and stuff like that. And I walked around with this big old gauntlet-like thing on my arm.
So how long was that recovery and for that?
I kind of recalled 2 or 3 operations because the first one I remember didn't take. So then they did it again, and then you know, they broke it a couple of times to get it going, and the one kind of does little S-curve, you know, so. Yeah, so that was cool, you know, everybody was cooperative, nobody gave me a hard time, you know, and then, yeah.
So when did you get service disability for that?
That was immediate, that was all done prior at the out processing station, you know.
That's good.
And when I first got back, you know, we had this, was it first? I don't remember. I remember the time I started drinking. Jack Daniels was my flavor of the month. So, and then in the morning, I used to take a sip of Jack Daniels to get my eyeballs cleared, you know. I got caught one time. And our company, he was the XO at the time, put me in drug and alcohol rehab, you know, and for 4 weeks, you did nothing but run and diet, you know. I lost 15 pounds in 4 weeks, and if I saw him today, I'd thank him because he probably saved me from a dangerous road of alcoholism, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that with the Marines?
Yeah. They didn't have the attitude that they have today. They thought that, you know, physical training and, you know, some counseling was the way to get you off of all these things. And, yeah, every place we went, we lived in these Quonset huts, and as soon as your foot hit the ground outside the door, you were at top speed wherever you went, even if you were going 10 feet. You know, so we would run 2 miles in the morning, 2 miles in the afternoon, and then 2 miles before dinner. Because in the afternoon you had salad for lunch. It was, you know.
And this is all Pendleton still?
Yeah, it was all penalty. Yeah.
And that was before Alcoholics Anonymous?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, before they got any of that kind of stuff in there, they created another program. But
Right.
yeah.
And
I always wondered how many of those stayed off of it, you know. 'Cause
Right.
it did me well. It made me, you know, gave me an opportunity to stay away from it or to not become dependent upon it. You know?
That's good.
So
Where did you go after Pendleton?
I got discharged. I got out. Came home. I was out for a while, then I went in the Guard.
Did you take advantage of your GI benefits when you got
Yeah,
discharged?
but I was not school material at those times.
What about a mortgage
No,
or house
no,
insurance?
no.
And how'd you end up in the Guard 2 years later?
Saw a newspaper advertisement in the Star Ledger. And, called the number and went up to West Orange and joined. I was 76 or 77.
April 77?
Yeah.
And let's go through the locations where you were. You were a part-time technician?
Yeah, and from 79 to 80 to whenever I went on AGR.
You were doing the weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer? at
Yeah,
this point?
and then I went full-time as a civilian technician.
So
And,
West Orange?
Yeah.
And where else?
And then I went AGR, and then I went to East Orange, to the DMMC, which was a joke.
Why?
Well, they're support troops. they couldn't pull their head out of their ass if you had an Irish traffic cop showing them how to do it, so, you know,
I'm Irish.
so.
All right, the DMMC, it provides material management for weapon
Right,
systems.
right. I was the training NCO, full-time training NCO for them.
What was a typical day like doing that?
Just, yeah, it's, you know, a lot of paper, you know, coordinating the upcoming drills, and, you know, that's where I met my wife. She was the supply sergeant for the old AG company in East Orange. Yeah, she was
Interesting.
good in BDUs.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah, we were married 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that you met her?
Let's see now.
In the 80s?
Yeah. Well, you're asking, I'm glad she's not here.
You got, the AGR was July 81.
Yeah, so it was probably 83 that I was over there. We got married in 88. And then she passed away 2011.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, right? So then, yeah, so I was there. I worked for Colonel Everett Allen over there, and then
East
Colonel-
Orange?
Yeah. Yeah, that's, Morgano was the DISCOM commander at that time, you know? And there were some good people, you know, they all weren't, there was, you know, not to sound sexist, but there was a lot of females, and they just, you know, they were just having a hard time with some of the stuff that I was trying to train them in. So, you know.
So
And then I went back to B Company.
15 years you were in East Orange?
No,
No?
no, I was only there for 18 months, and then I ran back to West Orange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went back to West Orange real quick.
But there were no other locations where you were? In the
Then
Guard?
towards the end, I ended up,
AGR?
then the AO for the second tank after the reorganization in, what was it, 90? Decided to play Ouija board with everybody in the battalion and sent me down to Somerset. Danny Mahan.
What was the work like for you during this time?
As a training NCO?
Yeah,
We're at the DMMC, or when I went back to West Orange?
DMMC first.
Well, it's more paperwork than anything, because they're rear echelon, they're paper pushers, they're not really a lot of physical stuff going on. So it was coordinating, getting people into school, that kind of stuff. So it was really more administration. And, yeah, it was okay. It was all right, you know. But it wasn't my cup of tea, you know. So I went back to West Orange and got B Company at that time. And I stayed there until I retired in 96. You know, became a master gunner, acting first sergeant. So that was really my cup of tea.
Good.
You know, I enjoyed myself every day working there. You know, it was a pleasure to get up in the morning and go to work. You know?
That's how it should be.
Yeah, it was. It was just, it was great, you know. I started out in the M48A5 tank. Well, you know Duncan McQueen? Yeah,
I was
we
just
were
thinking of
We
him,
were
yeah.
together. So we all started out in 48s, then we went to the 68-3, and then we went to the M1s.
What year was the M48 for you?
From 70 till we got the 60s in 86, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, Duncan runs a tank crew of volunteers here.
Yeah.
Every other
yeah,
weekend.
Yeah, I see, I catch it on the internet, yeah.
Did he try to get you?
Yeah, but I'm too involved with the Essex troop up in West Orange. I'm more involved with other things, you know.
Right.
So, but yeah, all those guys, when I was down in Somerset, I was in A Company, second tank down in Somerset. So a lot of guys that are here are from that old company.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And, yeah, and then we went to Then, what was his name at Division at the time? Norm D'Amicus had pushed to have master gunners at all of the tank company levels. Because back in those days, we had first tank, second tank, third tank, and fifth tank. You know, so he wanted to get all master gunners in all of the tank companies. So we all went, a bunch of us went down, the first iteration went down to Camp Shelby, Mississippi. What an interesting little post.
Who went there? You? No.
Yeah, I went there, a couple guys from 5th Tank, and then one guy from 3rd Tank, what's his name? Became a sergeant major, that's his name. I don't remember it.
Why was it an interesting little post?
It was out in the middle of friggin' nowhere.
This
At
is-
the end of the day, there was zero to do. And we only had one car between all of us.
How long were you there for?
That was 14 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was long.
You
Right
took-
after, it
turns.
started right after New Year's. Went down there, and yeah, it was 14 weeks long. We started out with 15 or 16, and 4 of us graduated. Yeah, it's the Master Gunner School is nothing
Wow.
to shake your head at, you know.
Was Duncan with you?
No, he was the next group that went. I think he might have went to Knox for his Master Gunner.
Yes, he did. You're right.
Yeah, he went to Knox. So he was a Knox graduate, you know. And then we all went back for transition training for the M1. I went to Knox for transition. I think Duncan went, a bunch of us went, but not together, because the state wouldn't send us together.
Master Gunner was your favorite job in the service?
Well, it's not a job per se as much as it is the knowledge that you have.
Your specialty?
Yeah, you know, you were the training NCO for the company plus the master gunner, how it worked out for most of us. And you became the subject matter expert for tanks, for tank gunnery mostly. The whole, you were the subject matter expert for the turret up. The hull was the mechanic's problem. So you were Mr. Gunnery, the systems, how they operated, how they interrelated. You know?
So over these decades, you must have seen a change in financial parts having to do with the military? You started out saying there wasn't enough money.
Yeah, there
For
never
gas.
was. Even into
didn't
the
change.
90s, there never was enough money for the family. I used to work extra jobs around Christmas so I can go Christmas shopping. You know? Yeah. When I saw the big difference was when I went back on active duty for Iraq in 08.
All right, let's go back to when you got discharged from the Guard in 96.
Right.
Did you use GI benefits then?
No, I didn't have any
Oh, that's right.
because the rules weren't like what they are
Oh,
today.
that's right.
And I never qualified for any enlistment bonuses.
Really?
Because in the early days when they first started it, you couldn't be full-time and collect an enlistment bonus because that was your job. So they weren't going to give you an enlistment bonus to keep you employed. And then when they relaxed that, I had too many years where I wasn't in the MOS field or something. So I never ever collected an enlistment bonus while I was in.
So when you weren't in the military, it's about a dozen years, and in that time, 9/11 happened.
Right.
Did that change anything for you, or?
Well, no, it just, 9/11 was an occurrence, I guess, the same way the way people felt about Pearl Harbor, you know. It was something. But then when I heard the 102nd was getting deployed in 08, I asked if I could go, and we made it happen, you know.
How did that come about, and why were you motivated for that?
I just, we used to say, we were all the Cold War. So
Right.
in the late 80s, during maybe like the last part of Reagan's first term in
Right.
office into his second, the whole attitude about the Army changed. How we did business, how things happened. And the 2nd Battalion was operating like no other unit I have ever been in at any time. And we never got a chance to prove how good we were. Not that we wanted to go to war or anything, but it you know,
To use your training.
right. We never got the opportunity, and we were that good. Trust me, we were that good in those days.
So you really say that one of the best times to be in was during the Reagan years?
Yes, oh yeah. Yeah, there was a complete, you saw the change. That it started with this program called Battalion. After Reagan got elected, it was,
The military got built up, right?
not only that, but it changed how it did business, because it was still post-war Vietnam, and it changed. And I remember the first significant thing was how we trained people. So they started with this program. We came down here to Seagirt for this big introductory to Battalion Training Management Program, BTMSP or B or something. And that was the first step in the change that came along, which culminated in that later years, with the 2nd Battalion. You could just see how they changed. There was resistance in the beginning, by the older crowd. And then once they weeded out and we got into this whole understanding of how to train people and what to train for and what we were doing, and all these training materials started flowing down to us, it was a great time. It was a great time to be around, because it was serious. It was serious training. It wasn't no longer the weekend beer drinking, So it was cool.
It was more professional.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And I mean, throughout the state, you started getting this whole idea of professionalism coming in. And it was great to be part of it,
So your motivations also seem to be about that the Guard was getting deployed to Iraq with the 102nd Cav.
Yeah, so I
Why
went
was-
with them, yeah.
Why was that your motivation?
Just to do it one more time.
But why that unit?
Well, that's my regiment, Even though I served in the Marines, the 102nd is my regiment, So,
I don't understand.
well, you got the 102nd Cav, or at that time it was the 102nd Armor. And you just want to go and do it, just do it one more
Okay.
time. Even though it wasn't a combat operations per se, it was, in theater is different. It's a different attitude, for people.
So after the 12 or so years, what was it like wearing a uniform back then?
Great, yeah.
Where did you go first?
Fort Jackson, lovely little place.
South Carolina?
Yeah, went to Jackson. And I got bounced around for a week there. And then there was a thing called refresher training where you had to go for like 2 weeks, learn how to assemble, disassemble the weapon, how to shoot the weapon, gas mask and all of that. And then it turned out that the first sergeant of the detachment remembered me from some time, somewhere.
And you're 55 now, right?
I'm 65.
I mean, then.
Yeah, I was 55, yeah. So he remembered me from someplace and was, I said, why do I gotta do this refresher training? And she said, you're good, we got you. So I skipped the stupid refresher training and then went to Iraq via Atlanta, like the following week.
What does retiree recall mean exactly?
It's either involuntary, depending on what the need of the Army is, or you can go on a website that the HR has, and then you look down the list of what's there, and then a lot of them are unclassified. So with the 102nd, they were looking for an engineer. No, it wasn't specifically for the 102nd. They were looking for engineer support. So at that time, I was a pipe mechanic and carpenter, and a project manager for a company on the outside. So I put my resume in, and then they asked me, is there any particular place that you wanted to go to? I said, well, the 102nd is being deployed to Buka, and that's where I got put. So you can kind of select where you want to go, you know.
Buka, B-U-C-A?
CCA,
Right.
yeah, Camp Buka. It's in southern Iraq, like 15 miles north of the Kuwaiti border. So it also had, that's where the whole brigade, most of the brigade was there.
But you landed in Kuwait.
113th was there, 114th was there, 102nd ran the post.
You landed in Kuwait?
Yeah, went through Kuwait. That was the name of it. Ali Asaleen, something like that, I think it was. I wasn't there for very long.
So what was it like transitioning to the Middle East as opposed to being in Vietnam or being stateside?
I wouldn't stop at Iraq to take a piss. You know, I'm talking about going back to Vietnam where there was this, you know, life-threatening. I would rather go back there and move there than ever stop and even.
Why?
It's a shithole. It's a third world shithole. President Trump wasn't far off the mark. It's a shithole. You know, I got no time for nothing there. You know, they're no value to me.
Were there many there with you that were in your age group?
Nope,
You were like the old man.
I was the old man.
Would they call you Pops or?
No. Behind the scenes in Afghanistan, they called me the old Kajiti guy. They gave me a little trophy, and it goes to Sergeant First Class Walter Grumpy Hill. So I was 59 in Afghanistan. So I was the third oldest guy in theater, and it was only separated by months.
Let's talk about your mission in Iraq.
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
9 months. 9 months. So I got in.
That was the big deployment, right?
Yeah.
The first big Guard deployment since
For
World
New
War
Jersey,
II.
yeah. So the 102nd was responsible for Buka. They had an old regulation that they had. So the squadron commander became the mayor of Buka. You know, rather than, don't ask me, I didn't pick the names, but, and then they broke everybody up, and then there was the facilities engineering team, FET team, facilities engineering team, and I had the horizontal platoon.
You were a construction engineer?
Yeah. I had the horizontal,
What does
guy
that
by the
mean?
name of oh shit. Well, you know the State Sergeant Major?
Yes, Ernest Williams?
Yeah, he was part of it. He ran the group. So he was the NCOIC of the FET after we got rid of this other knucklehead that was there.
He was overseas when several were killed from his unit.
It was in 04 though.
That was.
Oh, that was another
that was
deployment
earlier.
he had,
Yeah,
okay.
when he
Then he had
deployed.
an easier deployment in 08.
Yeah,
right?
in 08 was a cakewalk, you know. So he was the NCOIC. I don't remember who the OIC was. I can't remember. He made the worst coffee in the world.
It's funny the things you remember.
Yeah, but we called it depression coffee. Like you were getting cheap with the drink, with the grinds, you know. He was terrible. We had this other master sergeant that was the NCOIC, but he was a waste of friggin' time.
And what were you constructing there?
Anything and anything. As work orders came in, we went out, you know. They had the concrete dividers, so a lot of times we would move those and place them, that kind of thing.
Were they effective?
Yeah, well, in Afghanistan, it saved my life. Yeah, from a rocket attack.
Really?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, saved my life. And it was only like the 4-footer, but it saved my life. Yep, because rocket
What about suicide attacks?
Nope, never experienced one.
Was that the only enemy fire you took on that deployment, or?
In Afghanistan?
Yeah.
We were always ducking and hiding rockets in those days. You know.
What about in Iraq?
We only had maybe, off the top of my head, 4, maybe 6 rocket scares, you know, and then there was always some drills that were going on too.
What was your weapon there?
M16, M4, no, I gave me an M16, believe it or not. And I used to work with the supply sergeant, whoever went on leave, I would go in and sign out their M9, so I wouldn't have to carry a frickin' 16 all the time.
Oh, okay.
So,
Did you have MPs with you and medics?
in my group?
When you would go, well, like, would you go out to build things, or were you always
Yeah,
in
we
Camp
used to
Buca?
clear the road out in front of Buca, but we didn't go far. And then
Oh, okay.
the friggin' Air Force was in charge of security, and they would provide the security. No, I'm sorry. Not the Air Force. Maybe it was the 113th. Had perimeter security. Maybe they had perimeter security. And then we had a bunch of Ugandans that were work parties for us.
How were they?
Cool. They were good. They were very hardworking individuals, very honest. You know, not very hygienic, but you know, a lot of times you get stuck in a truck with a bunch of Ugandans. It was tough. It was rough. It was rough. Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Same thing with any of the local Iraqis if we had them in our truck. Not very hygienic.
I want to ask about civilians.
Yeah,
Cool.
part of my job was to manage some of the contracts. So they were building this new facility for, what was it, Sky Eagle, the drone, the small drone that the Air Force had there. But we were responsible for placing these trailers that they had. And the Iraqis got the bid. Why we had the Iraqis build it, I don't know. But what can I tell you?
What was your opinion of your officers?
They were cool. There was a couple of them that I couldn't do without.
Like with anything?
Yeah, we had, one of the projects that they did was expand the fob 400 meters. And it went out beyond the old barbed wire. So we had to clean that up. And we ended up with this huge ball of barbed wire. And we're like, how are we gonna do with this? So we had Cat 9 bulldozers. I said, start digging a hole, and when you can't see the bulldozer anymore, we'll push it in. Buried it. So this major comes out. He's all impressed with the work we did. Wanted to know what we did with the barbed wire. And I said, you're standing on it. And he goes, buried it? I said, yes, sir. He goes, that's an environmental impact. I looked at him, I said, sir, this whole fucking country's an environmental impact. He said, well, we may have to dig it up. No, we can't do that. So we had all these crossroads we were building. So there was a crossroad about 50 meters to the one side. So I changed it, I put it right on top of the barbed wire. So, screw it. We ain't digging up no freaking barbed wire. You know? Yeah. So it's just stupid stuff. Sometimes you run across this stupid stuff. You know,
Maybe
the same
they'll
thing. They had a junkyard on Buca, and they were all big into doing this local contractor thing. But I went in, I looked at this thing, I said, "Sir, we can clean this up. We'll separate the semi-precious metals and we'll get rid of the crap." He goes, "Well, that's the problem. Where are we going to put the crap?" I said, "Well, we got an entire fucking desert. Why don't we just put it someplace?" "Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't do that." Well, they hired a Kuwaiti company to come in. He did exactly what we said. Separated all the aluminum, all the copper wire, separated all of that, took the scrap, went out the front gate, hung the right, went about a half mile, hung the left, and dropped it right in the desert.
Now, this whole hiring a local contractor, that was what, almost like an Iraqization?
It's exactly. It was
just to kind of get.
But most of them came out of Kuwait anyway, because there was no money in Iraq. They came out of Kuwait, like all the truckers and everything.
Money to bring it in, or for you to do it yourself, or?
That's what I always argued. You know, they had this lieutenant colonel that was in charge of all the contracts, everything. And I used to argue with him constantly about how much money he's pissing away. I didn't even like the guys from KBR, the American civilians that were there. I thought they were a big ripoff, but I'm just a sergeant first class. You know?
Yeah, one of my questions is, did you feel like you were part of a well-organized effort?
On the uniform side, yeah. And
So
then the
you
other
think
side of the
that-
house was just one big, you know, cash cart for those people. You know, the Indians ran the mess hall. We had Indian barbers. We had Kuwaitis doing this, and you know, it just seemed like the U.S. was pissing away money left and right. You know, like,
And
I'm just sergeant first class.
the roads had garbage all along the roads. There was no garbage.
Oh,
collection.
outside, yeah. Oh, yeah. There was, you would go around like, in the few times that we went outside Iraq, there's all these little 3-foot cyclone fences all over the place. And my honest belief is that they're there just to catch all the frickin' plastic bags. Because they were just covered with plastic bags.
On the
Roadsides
news-
were covered with plastic bags.
On the news about a month ago, they were running a whole story, and I mean the news is the news now, but they were running a whole story about some major who had been in theater in the '08 deployment. He wasn't guard, and just the sheer toxic waste that had been dumped in Iraq and what to do with it now. Did you ever see anything like
I don't know
that?
anything about that. The burn pits was the worst part.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, the burn,
pits,
yeah,
too.
because
The illnesses.
I had a map of Bucha. I should have brought it, but Bucha was basically square for the most part, you know. So when you came in, so the main road, let's say, cut in front of us. Bucha at the southeast corner was the main gate, and then there were 2 other smaller gates, but that was where all the major traffic came through. And down in the northeast corner was the burn pits. So depending on which way the wind blew, you got all of that. And there were several times when we were in our pods. Basically, a pod is like a shipping container
Oh,
with windows and a door.
Yeah.
Okay? Not as bad, but it's about the same size as a shipping container. So depending on the rank, they're designed for 4 or 6. Fortunately, I was by myself. The other half was the visiting quarters. So for most of the time I had some, but when the wind blew from the burn pit, you couldn't stay inside the pod. You had to go outside. And even though the outside wasn't bad, but it would get concentrated inside the pod. It was bad. It was nasty bad. Yeah. So
that caused a lot of digestive troubles.
they don't know yet. I think it's probably to the point right now where Agent Orange was from Vietnam, so they don't know, you know. A couple of times we had to go help out with the burn pits, you know, and drive into the burn pit itself.
Were you given like hazmat gear or?
No, you were maybe a
Just
dust
simple
mask or
cotton
something.
mask.
Yeah. And they used to burn them, you know,
Plastics.
everything, whatever ended up there, you know. So, yeah, when they cleaned out the junkyard, they found a 2.5-ton truck buried underneath all the crap. So that's, I don't know how somebody wrote that off their books, but, you know. Yeah, there's a registry out there that if you were exposed, you can sign up for it. But I think they're just trying to feel their way through how and what if the burn pits are, you know, what's the long-term exposure.
Yeah, I thought I saw something about that.
Yeah.
You should definitely do that.
You know, but I couldn't tell you, you know. I'm 65 years old, I got bad knees, bad hands, bad shoulders. Is it part of that? I have no idea, but I'm 65 years old, you know, so.
Did you receive anything from the American population, from, you know, packages, cookies?
Oh, yeah, there was so much stuff coming our way in '08, and that's towards the tail end of Iraq, so we had so much stuff in '08, the people didn't know what to do with it. They were just giving boxes to people at sometimes. Sometimes there was just so much that you got, the express mail box, it's like 6 by 8 by 8
Yeah.
maybe. You were getting a whole box, which was, had probably had a half dozen tubes of toothpaste, that kind of things. But by that time, the PX was up and running. So a lot of those health and comfort items we really didn't need, but yeah, there was a lot.
Girl Scout cookies?
Yeah, and then all the chocolate ones would sit on the tarmac for too long, and you open it up, and you got one big blob of chocolate.
Oh, no.
So you would just kind of chew at it for a while, Like what's the minty one? The chocolate covered
Thin
mint one?
mints, yeah.
It was just like one big blob. You had to peel the plastic back. So, yeah. So, and then, and then my family would send me stuff, and then, of course, general order number one, there's no alcohol allowed in the country.
Oh, that's right.
When you figure it out, there's a will, there's a way. So, my wife used to empty out the cookies at Otis Spunkmeyer because it had a Mylar bag, and put my Jack Daniels in there and send it to me. And because when it got X-rayed, it was just one big blob of Mylar, So, and we used to get together, and then there was a group of us that played cards. We'd sit there and just have some sip of whiskey and enjoy ourselves.
And the communications that you had compared to when you served overseas in Vietnam?
Oh, well, yeah, there was...
cell phones or emails?
What was it called in Vietnam? We got to do it sparingly. K-Mars, something like that. It was a shortwave radio where you could get on. It's like having a phone, but it would go over to shortwave, and then someone would patch it through, and it was like kind of when you were talking to someone, it was like talking through a toilet paper roll. So that's what my father said. It sounded like it was, and then you got this. You had to listen real hard because it was almost like a monotone whisper from the other end. So I got to call home 2 times maybe using K-Mars, but in Iraq there was a call center, so you'd buy an AT&T card or something.
Or you were given those in your packages?
Sometimes you got them. Yeah, sometimes they came in the packages, but other times, you go buy one. And then when I was in Afghanistan, I bought a cell phone. Had a cell phone,
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was big. But we had an incident in Afghanistan where this little knucklehead, or two or three of them, young troops, had their cell phones, and we were in a rocket attack, a serious rocket attack, and they're calling home. Oh, we're in a rocket attack. I took their phones away from them, found out where they belonged, turned them over to the first sergeants. So my thing was with the one first sergeant, this female first sergeant, she said, I don't see any big deal. I said, but they're calling back to Fort Drum and saying we're in a rocket attack. How long do you think it is before that news circulates through the housing and all these wives are worried whether their husbands are in a rocket attack? What we don't know is what we don't know. And she just didn't get that. But Sergeant Major got it. And then they blacked out the cell phones after that when rocket attacks happened. Trying to
That makes sense.
Yeah, just stupid,
Do you have any more stories from Iraq?
No, we just did a job, It was pretty mundane, but everybody got up, everybody did their job, it was a good team, put together a good team. There was, Williams was part of it. What's his name? Oh man, I can't forget. He got hurt. Eddie something. Knucklehead tried to hold up a bucket on a bobcat and broke both hands. Both. Why don't you just let it fall, So,
I'm sure he asked himself that question.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, especially when he, goes to scratch his head or something, you know. But I talk to him every so often. And then, what was the other guy's name? Started with a B. Don Brandonelli. He's out in California now. I talk to him every so often too, you know.
That's good.
So you were out of Iraq when?
June of '09?
Yeah.
Did you notice a difference in
Coming
the
home.
service, actually in Iraq from late '08 to early '09?
It's just the same sense of dedication by the young troops. You know, they just want to do their thing. You know, we had guys from Jersey, we had Navy guys in our group. We had people from Michigan. So you brought all these different people together, and I didn't have any problems with it, except for one knucklehead. But other than that, it was just, I need you to do this today, right? That's our, you know, you show them on the map of the post. You're gonna meet somebody here, you're gonna do this, you're gonna dig a hole, you're gonna move a wall. And the best part was, I didn't have to go back and check on them. Because I knew
You could depend on if they
that
were
everybody,
reliable.
everybody did their job. So it was one of those fortunate times where people from all points of the compass came together and we were good. You know, there was, and then the best part was, we had a lot of young females, and they were as hardworking. You know, you think construction, so you think guys, but these girls came in, and the one girl could operate a forklift better than any guy. You know, we had a female up on a bulldozer, big Cat 9 bulldozer. She loved it. You know, so you know, and it was great. You know, and you had guys come in from Michigan. You know, totally different way of thinking. Fell right into place. You know, and you know, it was. It was good times. It was. And the other NCOs, you know, Sergeant Major Williams and Eddie and Don Brandonelli, you know, we used to play cards all the time, throw darts, you know, but when it came time to go to work, we were all business. You know, it was a good time. It really was. The NCOs ran that operation, you know, which was pretty cool.
And that kind of speaks to my next question. Your motivation for being there in the first place was to use your training.
My motivation was I wanted to do it one more time.
That's great.
That was my motivation.
And then you decided to do it again.
And then do it again in 2010.
And how did that come about?
I sat down with my wife and I said, I want to do it one more time. And, you know, because I've been on the HR site. I said, there's a job here at the 10th Mountain. They're going to Afghanistan. I said, baby, I just want to do it one more time. She was like, go for it. Just make sure you come home.
Was it different to not be with a New Jersey Guard unit?
Yeah, it was a little bit, you know, but not much different. You know, soldier is a soldier is a soldier, you know. So.
That was August of 2010?
Yeah.
So where did you go with them?
Kandahar Air Base, Afghanistan.
And you were my age.
Yep, and I worked with people from other countries. My counterpart for most of my tour there was from Slovakia. We became very good friends. Worked with several officers I was the only NCO, by the way. So I worked with several officers from France, from Romania, Lithuania, a British guy and a Canadian guy.
What was that experience like?
Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. I enjoyed it. Our boss was a colonel that was trying to get her time in on deployment. She was a lieutenant colonel and never been deployed. She was a finance officer out of the Pentagon. She was pretty good, you know. But the real motivator was Radinsky, Major Radinsky. He was a 10th Mountain guy and a mathematician. He taught math at West Point for a little while. So he was pretty cool. Then there was an artillery officer from 10th Mountain with us. I forget his name. So, yeah, it was cool.
Your job was carpenter specialist?
Where? In Afghanistan? No, I was an intel assessment analyst.
Human assessment, okay.
Yeah.
What did that entail?
My responsibility was Kandahar City and 4 or 5 of the surrounding districts, and I would evaluate it on the basis of governance, the economy, the people, that kind of thing, and make periodic reports about it, you know. And then we would go out with, I forget the general's name, but he was a Canadian general, and he was the overseer of our section for it, because the headquarters then was the headquarters for the southern region of Afghanistan, which had Kandahar City, and also had, what was the city down south, which was the major cross between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Started with an A, I forget. Yeah, I forget, but we would travel with him sometimes. So the Slovakian officer and I, there was this Afghan national police chief. Now, how does somebody become an Afghan national police chief who's quote unquote illiterate? How that happens, I don't know. But anyway, we were.
He's a good talker.
And he's full of shit too.
Usually they are.
We were at a meeting, and they would always pass out these papers and folders, and he would take one. And I'm sitting there in the back of the room with Slavo, who was a Slovakian officer. And I'm watching this guy, and I lean over to Slavo and I said, "This son of a bitch can read." So he's watching him. He says, "I think you're right." So we went to my boss, told him about our observations, and so forth. So then they started watching him, and then we made a recommendation. There was a term called a white paper, years and years and years ago. And what the white paper was, we would all get through. There would be 3 pieces of paper, basically saying the same information, except for one detail was left out or added in. And that's what we did to him. And then the next meeting, he started talking about it. And it was only in his paper. And then they collected the papers up, quote unquote, as top secret papers. So they collected the papers up at the end of the meeting, and then he talked about it later on.
Oh.
So
what happened to him? Did he get fired or something?
No. They just, you know, the intel people now had something to play with against this guy. So, yeah. So he was part of the Karzai clan, which at that time, well, they might still be, but, you know, Karzai was the president at that time of Afghanistan. And that whole Karzai family was very, very big and influential in Afghanistan. So, yeah, so, and then after a while, because of my construction background, I started to evaluate all of the SOWs, the statement of works, the projects that they wanted to do. So they started pushing those all to me, if it's a sound plan, construction-wise and so forth. And I became known as the sergeant with the red pen. So, yeah, they would, you know, I'd get this plan to build something, you know, community center or school or something, and they want to put fluorescent lights in the building. And I'm like, why fluorescent lights? Well, that's what we need. I said, yeah, but when they break down, what are they going to do with it? There's no Home Depot here. So I said, what you need to do is give them kerosene lanterns or something of that nature, you know. And then they would have all this electricity and all this other stuff and these big, huge generators. I would just tear it apart, you know. And most of them got turned down, and it became not well liked with a lot of the people. So
That's why you were the Kaji Grumpy?
kind of, I guess, you know. So
Who made the trophy for you?
the other NCOs that I worked with, there was the assistant operation NCO. We used to work together. There was a guy from when we went out on the patrols. There was my team, which was I call it the FET team, the female engagement team. I didn't have a better name for it because that's how it originally started. Was that they would send out the female medics and social workers to work with the Afghan women on women issues. And then it grew from there, and it always became known as the FET team. So, and then there was a security detail that went out with us, and that NCO, Mark, I forget his name. He lives in Colorado now.
Is that when you almost got killed?
No, we were innocently walking to the PX.
Oh.
And the alarm went off, and we went from an open area to dive next to the wall, and just as we were getting ready to dive down, the rocket landed in the walkway where we were going to walk up to the PX, and we went around the other way. So the wall saved me.
Right.
But the concussion knocked the snot out of me. So that was, I don't remember.
Did you have any medical problems with that?
Not that I know of, but then again, I'm 65. So if I forget things, I don't know if I'm 65 or if I'm screwed up from that. You know?
Wow.
So, but, and then, yeah, there's a lot of good things, you know.
What about Kandahar Air Base? What was the activity there?
It all depends. It changed. Most of the time I was compiling reports from either a patrol or something new that came in, or I was going to intel meetings and just putting it all together, trying to make sense of it, you know. And then
But was it being attacked?
all the time. Yeah, we at least once a week. And then the alarm went off. What's their big holiday? Ramadan, I think. Their Ramadan. So Ramadan was quiet. But prior to Ramadan, just prior to Ramadan, for about 10 days, we used to get hit around 7 a.m. every morning. And for whatever reason, most of the rockets hit the shit pond. I don't know why. A couple times, one hit a mess hall. There were a couple casualties. Hit the airfield once. You know, matter of fact, when we were leaving, the plane was supposed to take off at like 5:30 or something. For whatever reason, it was delayed. It was delayed, and then the crew chief comes down one time, and I go, "Hey, it's 07." He goes, "Yeah, we got it. We're gonna take off." I said, "No. Usually 07, there's incoming."
Oh.
So we got to haul ass, you know. So I said, we didn't know that. I said, well, somebody ought to tell you, because, you know, inbound comes in at 07 just about every morning, you know. So, but then that day they sent one over around 9:30. We found out later on. So, but yeah, they used to send them, because all they did was take this Chinese rocket, 106 millimeter rocket. And they didn't have the launcher, so they would go and dig a ditch, you know, and set up the wires with a battery and some kind of primitive timing. And they weren't aiming it. Well, they were aiming it, but it was just, you know, whatever. And that bad boy would go off with nobody around. And after it took off, where it landed is where it landed, you know.
So what
Ironically, one time it hit the mosque right outside the post. I thought there was a certain amount of irony right there.
Very much so.
You know?
What would be the defense against something like that?
None. Early warning, and just hope and pray that it's not going to come down by you. You know, they had bunkers all over the place. You know, when I first got there, my first rocket attack, our bunker, where our hooch was, the gymnasium was over here, and we were heading to the hooch one day, and the alarm went off. We went over towards the bunkers that were by the gymnasium, and there was not enough room in all the bunkers. So myself and Sergeant Caraballo, finally, it took us a while to find out who was responsible for it, and filed a report with the Air Force was running the post.
Right.
So they were a bunch of jackasses, but filed a report with them, and then they put more bunkers over there.
Did you notice any differences in the 2010-11 deployment as opposed to the 2008 in like preparedness or money or anything?
Well, gotta remember, Afghanistan, they were still hot and heavy,
Yeah.
you know? Because the next region over was southeast, and the Marines were killing people over there, you know? So, and then, you know, we had operations going on in right outside of Kandahar City, downtown. So, yeah, there was a lot going on. We spent $10 billion in projects, $10 billion in 1 year in projects. And I would be fast to say that most of them are non-functional right now, to this day.
Such a waste.
We pissed away a lot of money. Yep. All in the eyes of, you know, doing this and doing it. People were building shit. Story, here's a good story for you. We go into this one village up in maybe Argandab or Dan was the district. So the Canadians were famous for this, sticking their nose into Afghan business. They're going into the village, and we had this Canadian social worker, and she sees them butchering the goat in the street. Unsanitary. We got to build them a butchery house, or whatever you call it, a place to cut up their animals.
A butcher shop?
Butcher shop, yeah. So they got to give them a building like this size of this room, right? The leader of the village says, I don't want a butcher shop, I want a community center. No, we'll give you a butcher shop, we'll give you this butcher shop. So the Canadians come in with help from the Americans, and they build this building. You know, it's a steel building, steel roof, but it's got all this stainless steel tables and all this stuff in there, right? So they put it up, they have this great ceremony, the butcher shop of shithole number one. We go back there a month later, and they took all the furniture out and made a community center.
And use the
Okay.
stainless steel for something
Right.
we needed.
So then, the other one was, we go into this other village, and they see all the women walking down to the well. The well system in Afghanistan is an interesting story on its own, but they see them walking, so it's about a half mile or better to this well. And they're all down there, and they're like, oh, they gotta carry this water all the way back. And so they figured, okay, we're gonna build them a newer well closer to the village. And they didn't want it. Oh, we're gonna give it to you anyway. So they build a new well. Have a big ceremony, all the big dignitaries back, you know, patting themselves on the back. We go back a month later, the new well is filled with rocks. And they're down at the other well, which is about 3/4 of a mile away. You know why? We interfered with their social time. It was the one time the women could get away from the men and not be bothered. They spent most of their day at the other well.
So a lot of this problem is
Lack of
yeah,
communication.
lack of communication and understanding
Right.
of what they want.
Right, exactly. By
Giving them what
Western
we
standards,
think
we're
they
gonna give
want.
you a new well. By Afghan standards, you're butting into our business, leave us alone. So, but, and you just saw that stupidity over and over and over and over again.
Did you have the same opinion of Afghanistan that you did of Iraq?
Yeah, I wouldn't go
Third
back
world
there.
country.
Yeah, I wouldn't go back there. There's nothing there that I want to see or even experience, you know?
And how was your health in the desert?
The heat kicked my butt. I came back from one of the patrols one time, and it was like 116 degrees, and you got all your silly shit on. And I looked at my boss, and I gotta go take a shower, and she's like, yeah, go do what you gotta do. So we had these little shower stalls. And I'm standing in there, and I fell asleep standing up. I swear to God.
Oh,
It wasn't for very long, but I fell asleep standing up with the water running on me. I was so tired from that experience that from then on, we coordinated our efforts. So I have never been that tired, and I was up for hours on end over my career, but I have never been that tired or that worn out,
Right.
ever. And maybe being 59 years old might have something to do with it, you know, so, you know.
Do you have any other stories from Afghanistan? You were there till December 2011?
Yeah, there was one incident, but that's, I don't know. Yeah.
How were holidays there?
They were good. You know, there was Easter, 4th of July, Christmas, you know, New Year's, you know.
Thanksgiving?
Like our individual office, you know, we celebrated Christmas and so forth. Who really knows how to do it are the French. They had their French National Day, which is right after 4th of July. It's like maybe July 10th or something. Well, these guys flew in all this French cuisine, and they actually brought in some wine at that time. We weren't allowed to have any, but they celebrated with the headquarters. And I have never tasted the food that I had that day. Celebrate. And then we got, because the one officer worked in our office, he invited us back to their compound for an additional celebration, and that's when we got told we couldn't have any wine. But still, the food was unbelievable. And they had a little concert of a French rock and roll band, I guess, you know, if you want to call it that. That was a good time. They really did. Then we spent Christmas with the Romanians, which was very religious, very respectful, and enjoyable. I had a great time at their Christmas celebration, which was Christmas night. You know, and then what else? It just, you know, a lot of good experiences. You know, and no regrets, none whatsoever. You know, a lot of good experiences. You know?
So your motivation was fulfilled to go one more time?
Yeah, and if I could do it again, I would. But I got
Maybe
bad
somewhere
knees,
else.
bad shoulders, bad hands. So it was good times. You know.
And that was your last time in uniform?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I put my uniform on one time. My nephew got commissioned a second lieutenant, and he asked me to be the first one to render a salute.
Oh.
Yeah, so, you know, he had his silver dollar ready. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Did you use your GI benefits then?
Yeah, I did. I finished my degree in 2017. I finished my degree in
Congratulations.
American literature and history, American history.
Where did you go?
I started out at Morris County College and finished up at Centenary. So, got my degree.
Good.
So I should have brought it down here because my parents are buried down in Toms River. I always want to bring it down and say, hey, it's 40 years late, but here you go, you know.
Wow.
You know, yes, I used that. And then on the refinance, I went through USA Today and used my VA benefits to refinance the house. You know, so.
Well, that's great. You're getting the VA benefits that you deserve.
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm not one to, I take advantage of the VA medical. They're gonna repair my knee, my shoulder in October. You know, it's because TRICARE, there's not a lot of specialties available in TRICARE in Jersey. Down this way there's more, but up by me there's not a lot, you know. So, but I use the VA a lot. I'm rated at 80% disability.
So you get that stipend?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And then my wife, when she was, she got medically discharged, she was 100% disabled. So I get a widow's benefit, a widower's benefit from her because she was 100%. So I have no complaints about, you know, things that I'm able to benefit by afterwards. You know?
Right. Is this the most that you've ever spoken about your time in service?
At one sitting, yeah. You know, I go to counseling for PTSD, you know, but
That's good.
even then I don't, you know,
Right.
so,
When did you start doing that?
PTSD.
I mean, after Vietnam, how long did,
Oh, I didn't, that's a recent thing.
right.
Yeah, I don't,
That's, at least you did it. That's good.
yeah.
We wish you a lot of luck with that.
Yeah, they tell me I'm a high functioning.
Seem very high functioning.
You know,
Yeah.
high functioning, I don't know what that means, but, you know. I wish my body functioned as well as they think it does. You know, so you know, I got no regrets. I enjoyed everything I did except for a couple of incidents, you know, and they are what they are. They're in the past. I can't do anything about them unless I run into the people. I might punch them in the frickin' face. You know? But,
And that's good that you keep in touch with those you served with.
yeah, well, I'm involved with the Essex Troop, so those guys, we all served together up in the 102nd, you know.
That's how I know you. You came here and did research on the Essex Troop.
Yep, and I'm still researching. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to the son of the World War II commander for the 102nd Cav Group, and he's looking through his father's things,
Which one is that?
Cyrus Dolph. He was not a guardsman, he was a active duty officer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Cy Dolph. He ended up in later years being the assistant commander of MACV in Vietnam.
Oh,
Yeah, and then he suffered a heart attack. So, yeah, out of the 102nd, a lot of famous people came out of the 102nd. So, but
well, Toby, we just want to say that we're honored and humbled that you came today to speak
Yeah.
to us
Yeah.
of your sacrifices and contributions that you made in service to our country. And thank you, and God bless you, and welcome home.
thank you. Thanks.
Great job, outstanding.
Okay.